Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Hello and welcome to the School of Love, the place where we learn practical tools based on scientific research towards improving ourselves, living life to its fullest, and contributing to the best of our abilities to the world around us. I am Dr. Grajdian. In my free time, I am doing my best to guide you in building a life of contentment, joy, and fulfillment while applying lessons learned in school to overcome the difficulties, challenges, and insecurities of the real world. In today's video, I talk about overthinking when it happens that you are the person overthinking. I include this topic in the series Things I Wish I Knew When I Was Younger, which contains small videos on precisely that. Very practical tips, tools, and tactics which would have helped me tremendously when I was younger than today and much less experienced. These are ideas which I wish someone more mature than myself would have told me, not even explained to me, but just told me that they exist so that I become aware of a different way to look at the world. We all know all those persons who eternally think too much. Actually, they overthink. But what if you are the one who overthinks? In this video, I start with a definition of overthinking and some of its causes, and then I deliver a 5-step protocol, which helps you learn to deal with overthinking when you are doing it, and hopefully to heal in time, at least partially, so that by the end of this video, you will have a complete protocol for dealing with overthinking in yourself, if you choose to do so. It has helped me tremendously, although it took years to improve, and I still catch myself overthinking at times, overthinking things eternally. But at least I recognize it in myself, and I am able to deal with it. How to deal with overthinking when you are doing it, when you are overthinking? I will start, as I said, with the definition, then with some signs to recognize that you are overthinking, some causes, and overthinking is also called rumination, and then I'll deliver this 5-step protocol on how to deal with it. It's not about healing at this stage. It's about how to make possible that you live a good life, as good as it gets, while coping with this mental and emotional process. So what is overthinking? Overthinking is this situation in which we ruminate. We think about something again and again and again in circles or in loops. We repeat in our heads the same old patterns, the same old stories, the same old events again and again. And usually, so it depends very much, but sometimes, usually, people tend to overthink over events which have happened recently, and they try to find the best way to deal with those events, to react to those events. Overthinking, the difference between overthinking and actually thinking forward is that there is no exit strategy. So it is only about repeating the same thought, the same event, the same memories in circles or in loops or in spirals, whatever. Anyway, there is no exit, there is no progression. How to recognize it is when you stay awake at night and think about the same mistakes, maybe the same negative events, the same frustrations you have been thinking for a long while now. This could happen also with good things, with good memories. In both cases, there is an accentuation, a highlighting of the initial emotion. So if you feel bad about some events, some thoughts, or some emotions, they will tend to get worse by overthinking. And when you feel good about, for instance, memories, they will tend to get better in the process, which both of them are not very beneficial, because in the first case where things are getting worse and worse, the more you think about them, then you'll get into a sort of depression, and you'll get in a kind of mental and emotional lockdown where you simply cannot move. It's called overthinking paralysis, and it's a real phenomenon where you feel stuck, but you are stuck in your own head. And the second one, when your memories or your perception of specific events, things, persons are good and they are getting better, you'll develop nostalgia and you'll want to repeat those experiences. But very often it's only the product of your own imagination and thinking things again and again that they become better. Most of the time things are not so bad and not so good as we imagine them and as we keep them in our heads. Causes, it's again comes from childhood. I won't get too deeply into that, but it comes from the fact that if we grew up, if parents fail to give children this sense of safety that mistakes are all right, then children will cling to the hope that thinking about them and finding solutions so that next time, whatever they might have made a mistake, when we're small children, actually we have a very limited area spectrum of being able to do mistakes. We cannot redo big mistakes, but if we have normal healthy parents or caregivers. But if we are given the impression that mistakes are not allowed, that failures are not allowed, then we'll start overthinking. So next time when this happens, I will do this and I will do this, and what have I done that it went out so wrong? And thinking about events, thinking about what has happened again and again and hoping for a different outcome, this comes from childhood. As someone I know used to say, we should actually try to find strategies to raise children who do not have to heal from their own childhood their entire life. And there's a huge amount of truth in this statement. So the first step, as always, is awareness. Everything I'm explaining here is about becoming aware. Asking yourself such questions as why am I thinking about this? Why is this so important to me? Why am I thinking about it continuously? Why can't I let go? Why can't I just move forward to something else? So asking these kind of why questions is very helpful. You don't have to have the answers. It's just about asking the questions, allowing yourself to ask the questions and asking them, and then sending them to your subconscious so that it can process them, and you'll have answers. If you are honest with yourself, and if you take this decision, I'm going to be honest with myself, I'm going to ask questions and find answers which are true and truthful, and which are trying to solve the solution, not to hide beneath false pretenses, you'll have the answers. They might be uncomfortable. Usually not all of them, but usually they are. But well, this is life. Life is what it is, and we cannot, instead of trying to control life, we should actually take control over our own emotions, thoughts, and reactions. So the first step is awareness. Develop this awareness. And then the second step, which comes together with the third step. So the second step is identify the trigger. Why are you so stuck to thinking about that issue, about that person, about that event? Why are you so stuck? And the answer will be, so on one hand you feel uncomfortable with it, that's why you're playing it, or you feel too well about it, that's why you're replaying it in your head. On the other hand, there is some sort of reward, there is some sort of payoff which comes from replaying the event in your head, either positively or negatively. And identifying the trigger on one hand, so what keeps you glued to it, and then identifying the payoff which comes from staying glued to it, there are two sides of the same coin. Something makes you stick with it, whether you like it or not. Actually enjoy it. Even for negative patterns of overthinking, we are there because there is some sort of validation or reward we are getting from overthinking those events, those issues, those persons, or our interaction with those persons. And once you have identified the trigger, what keeps you stuck, or what forces you, what pushes you towards or into overthinking, and the reward which comes from overthinking, the reward which comes from reacting to that trigger, which you cannot control, then the fourth step is to find healthy ways to deal with the triggers and to replace the lack of reward which comes from reacting to the trigger. So let's say you're overthinking about someone who has wronged you in the past, let's say a former partner, and you're overthinking your interaction with that person. Some things seem really good, as I said, some the good things turn even better while overthinking about them. The bad things turn even worse when we overthink about them. So let's say of an ex-partner, and so the good things seem better and better, while the bad things seem worse and worse. So, but why do you play all those scenarios or former memories in your head, and all the things that person, all the manners in which that person has wronged you? You feel somehow validated. So, for instance, you might feel something like, I'm better than that. I deserve better. This is a sort of validation, or such a bad person. So, but it was good. Maybe it still works. So there is some sort of reward. Maybe there is hope. Yeah, there is some sort of hope that maybe we can still get together. So there is some sort of reward. And the idea is that you need a plan with very concrete actions before the trigger hits. Most people think, well, I'm able to control myself once I know about it. Yeah, I know the trigger, I know the reward, I'm able to deal with it. And yes, you're able to deal with it when you are at your best. When you have slept well, when you have had nice food, nice meals, when you have been successful at work, when in spring. So when the world moves in a positive manner, when you are at your best, you can deal with triggers, but particularly when you have made them conscious. The problem is we are not always our best. Actually, we are most of the time not at our best. In that case, you will need, for those moments when you're hungry, tired, angry, frustrated, sad, whatever, yeah, you will need an alternative plan to react to the trigger when it hits, and then to replace the lack of reward which comes from not reacting to the trigger. So, and let's say in case of this ex-partner, let's say they contact you again and again, and even you promise yourself you're not going to react to it anymore. And maybe when you feel very good, when you're at your best, you don't react immediately, you don't react for a couple of hours, but after a couple of days, you still react when you are not at your best. So for such cases, for instance, you just make a plan that when this person contacts me, I contact a good friend, and you tell that good friend or your family or a family member, someone you trust, and you tell them, look, I'm trying to solve this problem. Can I write to you every time I feel like writing back, replying to the emails or text messages? The idea is to allow time to pass between the trigger. So do something, replace the reaction to the trigger, so that you actually replace the reward which comes from reacting to the trigger. And the idea is to allow a little bit time to pass, because that dopamine spike which comes from reacting to the trigger and which then creates the good feeling and the reward, then to pass. And if time passes, your dopamine spike, there's no dopamine spike, there's also no dopamine crash, and actually you stand on a default level. So the idea is to gain some time in which the conscious mind takes control over the unconscious reaction to it. The fifth step, the last step, which many people don't talk about, is to be grateful, or at least to become some sort of grateful, to develop some sort of gratitude towards that thing you have been obsessing over. It might seem more difficult than it is, but just keep in mind that the fact that you had those experiences is what made you who you are. It made you a better person, it helped you grow, it gave you insights into yourself which you would have not otherwise gained. And altogether, while at the moment it seemed like a horrible and daunting experience, in time, when you look back, you'll think in terms of, well, first of all, more objectively, so it wasn't as bad or as good as I remembered it. It was an experience, and while I'm happy that it's over, I'm also grateful for the insights and the growth it allowed me to. So that would be for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you very soon again here. Love and peace to you all.